We didn't have any findings on it. We did run a background check. It was clear. We have financials on him. Prior business experience, not as a liquor store, but in other areas of commerce. He gave multiple years of tax returns and financial income and appears to meet all the regulations required by the liquor ordinance. There's a site plan included in your packet, but basically he is it's technically a double space where Fast Pace used to be. That was 2 business locations, so he's taking both sides of where Fast Pace used to be and occupying that. Chief, did you take distances for schools and churches? So the liquor committee has nothing to prevent passing the application. Of course, after he gets his certificate of appropriateness for us, or certificate of compliance from us, he goes on to the state and goes through this whole process again with the state, but he can't get his state ABC license until he's gotten his certificate of compliance.
Okay, is there a motion?
I got a question. You got an amendment down here on packaged liquor store requirements. Is that going to affect this one anyway?
That's a really good question, Lamar. It does not. This is about the requirements that we're talking about later on are about square footage, and this one exceeds the minimum square footage, so it won't apply to this particular application.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion does carry. We have no one to register for any public comments. In the workshop discussion, Jessica has some policy updates to review. We've all got a copy of those or had a copy of those, and we'll review those at this time.
Okay, so in your packet that was emailed out to you, I put a copy of the comptroller's investigation, and these policy recommendations are directly related to that investigation. At the end of that investigation, when they came and met with the mayor and myself and Sam Mosier and Sonia and City Attorney John Cleveland, at the end of that report it says that we have either already adopted policies that put us in compliance or that we will address the issues. So this is the first step in that. So just to kind of go through the plan of action, we have already updated our internal controls manual to use the new titles and the new organizational chart that was adopted when we did ordinance number 1042. We've reviewed these proposed policies tonight in this workshop, and then we're submitting drafted policy proposals to MTAS. Brad Harris is our finance consultant, so I'll probably start with him and see if there's anybody else that he wants to review it at MTAS and legal or somewhere else. When they send back comments, we'll then bring them back again to this board to look at. So this is going to be a several-month process. It's not going to be over tonight. We're going to address these and take the time needed to get them as best as we think they can be. We're going to present it back to the city board for adoption following the policies. And then we would create any forms or written order materials that we need to be able to comply with it. So I'm just going to go through each one of the deficiencies and specifically say what we're going to do. I'm not going to read the whole thing because you all have copies of it, but separation of duties was the first thing that was an issue. This is typically an issue in small towns because we don't have 20 people working at the front desk. There's always going to be some overlap. One of the things they particularly said was that during a time of transition, I was running payroll while we were waiting for a new payroll clerk to be hired, and they did not like that because I also had approved purchases and made purchases. So they didn't like that those 3 things were all being done by the same person. They are aware that you all review all purchases at the end of the month and approve a report, but they still wanted another set of eyes on it before it came to you all. So in the future, when we did the city administrator ordinance, we enabled that Sonia is probably not going to purchase much. It's going to be everyone else, department heads, people that work in the office. Sonia will be the purchasing approver from now on. So she'll be the person that approves the purchase on everything and make sure the documentation is there that we need. Including purchases that I make. Sonia will be the one approving those.
So that means Sonia's the backup.
No. I am still the backup payroll person, but if Sonia is approving all purchases, then that removes her from being able to buy things. So that's the hardship. If, there's only ever 2 people in the office, sorry, we can't buy anything until the next day whenever there's more people there. I mean, it's not that it's gonna affect efficiency. It will to some degree at some time, but also be the backup payroll person when Julie is out. Thank goodness Julie is very dependable. We should all employees especially be very happy that Jessica is not typically running payroll. But I'll still be the backup payroll person, but Sonia is who is approving all purchases,
So,
whether they're payroll related or regular purchases.
so we've got Sonia, we've got the department head. Who's the third tier? Is that you?
No, not necessarily. Typically what happens is someone in the department goes and makes the purchase, their department head initials
Okay.
off on it, and then Sonia makes the final approval
That's
as
it.
she's cutting checks or making the payment.
I just remember there was a
Three.
three tier, and I couldn't remember how that third leg.
And part of this is not a deviation at all. We'll get to that in a minute about receipts, but part of this is the way we've always done it. We just need to make sure that we're doing it every single time and doing it through that process. The other option, I mean, at some point, I've said this before, I don't want to add another person at City Hall, mostly because I don't trust anyone. But at some point, that will have to happen. We are running on less staff than any other office that does all the functions that we do. So we need someone to kind of work the counter and handle the counter work and let us concentrate on the purchasing, the payroll, the grants, all those things that we do. I'm not asking for that yet, but that's one of the solutions to separation of duties is more staffing. Prior approval system, they really want us to use purchase orders. I have seen purchase orders abused a lot, where every department head just keeps a stack of purchase orders on their desk and they issue them whenever they're needed. That's not the way purchase orders are meant to be done. So in response to them being very adamant that they want us to use purchase orders, I would propose that we set a dollar limit. And for our policy, I picked the number 5,000. I don't know if that's super doable or if that's something that's going to cause a lot of problems, but to me, purchases over 5,000, we don't have any department heads that are going out and spending $5,000 without talking to us anyway. They're always going to come and say, how much money do I have in my budget? Where am I? That's something we're going to have a conversation about anyway at that level. So it wouldn't be that much more difficult to go ahead and authorize a purchase order for something over $5,000. With all of these policies, there are no models for this. There is nothing that we can look up and say, hey, this is exactly what will solve this issue. Because as far as I can tell, MTAS doesn't have a model on any of these policies. I know other cities are currently being written up for the same thing, so people are trying to develop those policies, but right this second, there's nowhere I can find that already has them. So we're going to be a pioneer again and work on getting these passed, but they may come back 5 years from now and say, hey, this didn't do what we wanted it to do. We still are going to write you up for this. I cannot guarantee that that's not going to happen. What we're going to try and do is address what they've said and make the best of it. So my recommendation would be purchase orders for things over 5,000. Under 5,000, we're doing the same policy that we've always done, which the department head initials the receipt or whatever the purchase is. The department head determines in their department who's able to go purchase. So they get to decide who in their department is allowed to purchase. For some departments, that's everyone. For some departments, every single person in the department has a gas card and they're allowed to buy gas for a city vehicle. So for most departments, that's the case. But the department head would initial the signature on the receipt, and then they would either confirm it via email or verbally. When Sonia gets a verbal approval, before she actually issues the payment for it, she's going to stamp it and say, hey, I talked to this department head and he's who approved it. The comptroller didn't write us up for not having those approvals. They wrote us up because they weren't documented with a second stamp on there. So, and they also want them to be pre-authorizations. They don't want them to be after the receipt is written. So what we're going to do is say purchase orders over $5,000. We do have software that would keep track of that, but I think at this point we're going to do it just manually and not encumber those purchases. So if someone has an outstanding $5,000 purchase order, it may not reflect on the computer reports right that second. It may be something that we, have to add in manually. But
Why don't you do both of them at the same time and see what it turns out to be?
well, that's the thing about purchase orders too. It doubles the amount of transactions you have on one purchase. So you buy one thing, well, you have to do a purchase order and then an authorization and then another payment and then filing it away afterwards. Like, it's doubling the amount of work you're doing on that purchase. So that's why I said 5,000, because at least there's a threshold where we're not doing that on a 20-cent purchase.
When you talk about purchase orders, you're not talking about David sending somebody down at Napa to get a starter.
Only if it's over $5,000.
Right.
So it would have to be a tractor repair and for some of those we could do a standing purchase order that we keep on file with that company and say up to so much money. And for our charge accounts, that's probably what we would have
So
to
this
do.
is not coming day after day after day. It's few and far in between, I would think, where you would have a $5,000 purchase.
I would not think we would have to do more than one a week, probably. I can't imagine having that many purchases. I think it's manageable at this level.
We'd have to get one to get a new mower, cause
Yes.
the mower's about $10,000.
Yeah, you'd have to have one for a mower.
But that's already, even though it's already in a budget, the purchase order has to be,
Yeah.
okay.
That's what we said back to them often. There wasn't anything that was purchased that wasn't budgeted for that y'all voted on at some point, but they want a different set of documentation that shows prior authorizations. Now, that is not in the TCA code anywhere, just in case anybody was curious about that. Employees are reminded about the importance of keeping receipts. When we did a department head meeting last month, we reminded all the department heads we have to have receipts. They did find several times where receipts were missing. I would think at least a portion of those are because we've had to pull those records out and put them back so many times over the last 8 years that we had a receipt whenever we initially paid the payment, but 8 years later when we go back and pull that record, the receipt may have gotten detached from it or may not be there anymore. So we all know the importance of receipts. The one thing that was new in this investigation that we didn't know about, and also I cannot find a TCA code on, all packing slips should also be turned in with receipts. Well, not all companies issue packing slips, but our typical process before had been if we had a package, it was ordered for the fire department, they could have it delivered at City Hall, and then the fire department could come to City Hall, pick it up, and leave. That way we knew it got delivered, so we were tracking the inventory to some degree, but we didn't open their mail and pull a packing receipt out. Well, from this point forward, we will have to open all packages and pull the packing receipt out because they also want copies of the packaging. So when they wrote in this write-up that there wasn't enough documentation on some of the purchases, she point blank told us in that meeting, sometimes we had the receipt and we had the proper signatures on the receipt, but we were missing a packing slip. And again, that has never been in our internal control manual, which is the model manual adopted from MTAS, and it's not anything that I can find in a TCA code. So we will rise to the occasion and do above and beyond. On the second page, subscriptions, they ask a lot of questions about subscriptions. If we had an Adobe subscription or Dropbox or Microsoft Office, which the investigator also had on her computer. The big change in this is that they want us to audit those every once in a while to make sure that we don't have an employee that's left that we don't have that subscription on anymore. The way we've handled this in the past is it comes up annually as a charge on the credit card, and Sonia checks to see who that charge was for and decides whether we still need the subscription or not. But from now on, we're going to allow Landon to do an audit once a year and just kind of check and see any subscriptions we have that the employee is still employed. And they also wanted us to check to see if any personal use was on those subscriptions and make sure that they're being used for city business. So, and they actually recommended the IT person perform that audit. So that's a change. That's something we'll add to them. Sales tax exemption, one of the write-ups was because we occasionally, especially at restaurants, you'll charge something on the credit card and it's not tax exempt. You pay sales tax on that. So they want us to do a better job about making sure we carry the tax exempt form with us to get it waived. There are some companies that don't waive the tax exempt and also some things that aren't tax exempt. So if we go to Alabama for the tourism conference, that we can't get the sales tax and hotel motel tax waived in Alabama. We can only get it waived in Tennessee. So we will do our best effort to try and get our sales tax waived anytime it's eligible. They also specifically mentioned food a lot. That was a big concern, I think, because the complaints that were filed with them mostly focused on food. So I would recommend that in this year's budget, when we adopt the new budget, we add the word "and meals" to line item 280 in every department, because right now it just says travel and training, and I think that gives the impression that it's only used for out-of-town travel and training. Well, there's plenty of times that we order meals here for City Hall training, so I'm just going to put "and meals" to that line item, so that's one of the changes. The other thing about food purchases, and I am going to read this section because I think it's important, these are the things that we are going to authorize as saying these are legitimate food purchases. Again, we don't have a model on this. We are going to send this to MTAS. Who knows? Ours may begin being used as the model for everybody else. But these are the things, if you all hear something in this list that you do not want to authorize, now is the time to speak up and we'll mark that out. Or if there's something that I didn't include in here that we need to authorize, we can add that now. Economic development initiatives, presentations or meetings with potential investors. business owners, and support agencies. Examples include meetings of the Sweetwater Merchants and Property Owners Association, Sweetwater Main Street and Junior Main Street programs, chamber organizations, tourism meetings, events, initiatives, grants, and programs, school support, or educational organizations. Related to training, if the city is hosting the event, doing team building or employee morale exercises. Examples include employee training meetings, department head meetings, retirements, specific accomplishments, city events, festivals, holiday meals, and employee celebrations. The city board specifically authorizes the purchase of food from the city budget for employees, officials, appointed board members, and others involved in certain activities or programs that benefit the city or to reward their investment and contributions to the city. Examples include students involved with city programs or competitions and contests, volunteers working on behalf of the city and or Main Street or Sampo programming, interns, planning commission, and other city appointed boards. City board meetings and workshops, and those in attendance, including citizens and officials attending the meetings, workshops, and swearing-in ceremonies. That's added because one of the receipts they showed was a swearing-in ceremony. It is not the intention of the city to provide regular meals to employees as a taxable fringe benefit, but rather as an excludable de minimis fringe benefit. And there's definitions on what those two IRS definitions are on the next page. And that is no different from what we've always done. We have never intended to supply employees with regular meals. It has always been under the de minimis law or we've never done it as a taxable fringe benefit, which means the employee would be taxed for the value of whatever that is. They shall be provided for meetings, trainings, and business at the city's convenience. That's another IRS language. That's from their language. During times when a regular lunch period is not accessible or prudent, such as at festivals and events the city hosts, and infrequently, such as for special recognitions, holidays, birthdays, group meals, employee picnics, and employee retirements. Again, that wording is straight from the IRS definition of what that is. And then I included the de minimis definition. The next 3 or 4 pages is all the IRS information about that. Going on to prizes, gifts, and rewards. There's 2 ways we can handle this. Right now, we just keep it, most departments have an operating supply line item. It's under number 329 in their budget. If we wanted to pull that out and have a specific line item that said prizes, gifts, and rewards for the whole city, we could. The downfall of that is you don't know which department gave that reward, and it could be one department's dominating that line item, and it doesn't leave any money for some other department to do it. So I personally think it's better to leave it as it is now, to where it's split between each department, and that department head is responsible for how much they choose to spend out of their budget. But what this is specifically authorizing is purchases from the city's budget for employees and other volunteers or students for prizes, gifts, and rewards for those work, actions, or volunteering benefits the city of Sweetwater. Examples include employee retirements, tourism events, festivals, and initiatives, rewards for outstanding or exemplary service and accomplishment by employees, students, or volunteers. One of the examples I can give of this that was in the report, several years ago we had a student contest at the high school for one of them to design the website for the Blooms Bluegrass and Barbecue Festival, which is still the website that we're using today. And the girl who won that contest got a shopping spree downtown. The Main Street director took her door to door, and we had a set limit that she could spend. I want to say it was $250 or $500, and we took her to lunch that day. Well, all of the students competed and turned in projects, and we selected hers, and the number 1 winner got that prize. So that's the kind of example about prizes, gifts, and rewards. It does say the amount of the award should be reasonable for the situation and approved by the department head or commissioner prior to purchase. For me, the reasonable standard on that would be if we had to pay for someone to design a website, it would have far exceeded what the contest prize was. 2 other items, so they were not listed as deficiencies, but something that the report talked about, was what we used to call the gun pay fund. We are now going to call it the employee payroll deduction fund, just to keep it from being confusing. And the other one was private-public partnerships. We really zoned in a lot on Main Street and how that relationship works with the city. So on the employee payroll deduction fund policy, I have received the impression from the board, and I need your all's confirmation or feedback on this to make sure that I'm not off base here, that overall the board feels like the gun pay policy needs to continue to exist and that it is beneficial to the city. Is that inaccurate? Is there anybody that has a different opinion on that? So if that is the case, City Board wishes to establish a set of policies to allow the continuance of this program. The city will acknowledge this is an interest-free loan to city employees for purchases that will make the employees more effective in the performance of their duties. That's specifically addressing one of the report's concerns that said we were giving interest-free loans to city employees. This is considered a benefit for city employees. The employees may purchase items related to their job performance to be used in city business through an authorized payroll deduction. That's the same wording that we've always had in there. These are the differences that we're recommending, but again, this is up for discussion. Purchases should not exceed a total cost of more than one pay period's net salary. So basically, if that employee left employment right after they ordered this item, we would still have enough money left to pay them that we could withhold it from their last payroll. So that's why we set that number. The comptroller's report requested that we have, not requested because they don't want us to have a gun pay policy, I don't think. But one of their issues with it was that there was not a specific cap on how much they could use, other than their department head's approval, which has to be before they can purchase anything on gun pay. Also, sales tax should be paid on the transaction. That's always been part of the situation. If it's a weapon purchase, it can only be purchased for police, and it has to be authorized by the chief of police. Again, that has always been part of the policy. Only one purchase or order at a time. This was another thing the comptroller really didn't like, was that they could stack their purchases. So like they bought something in March and then they needed something else in April, they could do both of them. This would say you have to pay off that last thing before you can put something else on there. And then if they make one order from one vendor with 3 different items in it, that's fine and counts as one order. It's just they can't order anything else until they've paid off that one order, that one purchase. The rest of that under that topic is the same. The employees complete a form, they get a signature from the department head, commissioner, or city administrator. They submit it to the payroll clerk prior to the purchase. Payroll clerk sets up the deduction, and when she sets it up until it's paid off. So it's not something she has to go in and redo every single payroll. Like, this is on there until it's paid off. And then we give a monthly report to the department head telling what everybody's balance is. If someone leaves before they finish paying it off, it's deducted from their final check. It also says the mayor and board of commissioners, city administrator, or city recorder may freeze this program at any time, particularly if fresh budget or cash flow issues arise. So if we are in a tight spot where, God forbid, we ever get to the place where we have to borrow money for something that's operating again, we will not let people do employee purchase on this. Should we not do the employee pay program? I'd have to go back and look, but we would probably have to. In the last 2 years, employees have paid for $17,000 worth of items on the employee pay program that otherwise would have come out of the city's budget. So everything that they buy are things that the city would be paying for if they don't buy. So I'm glad that we have generous employees that are willing to buy the things that they need in order to do their job.
Does any other department use that except police department?
All departments use it. Like for your department, Parks and Rec, most of the time that would be for additional boots, because we might pay for one pair of boots for them every 2 years. Well, sometimes they do some pretty dirty work. They may need 2 pairs of boots, so they'll buy that second pair of boots for themselves off gun pay. That's probably the most common use for your department.
I got
boots.
a question. What is the biggest purchase, Eddie, on the gun pay? Is it guns?
For the police department use, it could be the optics, like the guys have gone for the red dots or the scopes. I know, for example, Kevin Watson bought an optic for his rifle. He had used the rifle at Ross and he went and bought an optic for it. I think it was about $1,000. It's $900. Sometimes we'll see the officers like myself. I purchased one. I think maybe I've got it paid off now. Purchased an off-duty gun, smaller, compact size, to carry when I'm off duty, and that way I don't carry the large one.
Well, I've heard the accusation made in time past, not recently, that what officers would do would buy these guns at a reduced price on gun pay, like a Glock, say for an example. They would pay for it out of their check, but in the meantime, they would sell that weapon for substantial gain.
I hope that was a misstatement. To the best
Is
I
that
know,
possible?
That's never happened.
Is
That's not possible. It's not going on. I mean, anything's possible? You know what I'm saying? I mean, but we pretty much, I keep up with what everybody has. I know in the last 2 years we purchased 7 guns, and everybody still has those guns. But here's the thing about it that the public needs to realize: anyway, the officers are going to get them cheaper anyway. Police, fire, and rescue, we get guns at a fraction of the price of what the public does. So I mean, it's not coming as a payroll deduction. Because about everybody, like Springfield Armory, Glock, they all offer $20
What does the average gun cost?
A Glock right now, matter of fact, we bought some $479 for a Glock 45 with the optics plates, what it costs. But that blank sight for it was like $369. The red dot sight that we've got on it that does the thing. And then the holster's $179 because we have a security holster that's got 2 latches to keep it from coming out. You know, so, and we were able to, Jess can correct me, or the commissioner, I think we got a lot of that out of the military, the funding for it when we updated those. But the city's never purchased the employees an off-duty gun. And if you're familiar with what I'm saying, these are pretty large here. So a lot of guys like to buy a smaller, not type time, because a lot of guys buy 6.5 caliber rifles because we've been working on the entry team and stuff like that. And they got thinking they might want to try some distance shooting to see how it works out. And as a matter of fact, one of them I think is going to work out and eventually hopefully be able to use it. But I'll keep a close eye on it, Mayor. And I hate that people get out and say stuff like that. But to my knowledge, that's not. I know it's not going on now. I hope it hasn't passed.
Well, like I said, it's not.
Yeah, no, and I do
nothing,
appreciate you
just,
bringing it up. But like I said, I can assure you it's not going on now, and I can assure you for it won't happen.
Thank you, Eddie.
So anything else on the employee, I can't even remember what we said we were gonna call it, the employee payroll deduction fund. It's a mouthful. If anybody's got a suggestion on a better name, we can come up with that too.
I like it better than gunpay.
I bet you do, Eddie. I bet you do, Eddie. Okay, so moving on, the last thing is private-public partnerships. They spent a lot of time talking to us about how the Main Street,
Let me ask you one question. Having it as it's presented, is that gonna create any income? Is IRS gonna be the next group in here looking at us giving interest-free loans to?
that's a
I
good
mean, I
question.
know it's not,
That's a good question, and I'm hopeful that
Well,
MTAS can give us some feedback on that. I mean, there are employers who give their employees interest-free loans towards purchasing vehicles and things like that. Now, maybe they're also doing fringe benefits for those benefits.
Well,
They may
yeah.
be.
Sam, in that meeting,
somebody's gonna want you to account for the interest at
did
some point.
did she recommend in that meeting we had that we do away with gun pay? Did she? What she?
The highlights that they were hitting on was it wasn't listed as a benefit, and it was interest-free loans. That was, and then sales tax. It was all those things kind of coupled together that seemed to be the issue. And then obviously leaving the city on the hook, when an employee leaves and just leaving us their debt. So
Well, we've got that covered now with the.
right.
Yeah.
I think
Still pay sales tax.
Yeah.
I will specifically ask.
Direct sales and sales tax.
it wasn't to answer your question. It wasn't. They didn't say stop doing this. It was all of these other issues that are bundled with doing it.
The accounting.
Yeah, and basically stating, putting it in a policy that it is going to be a benefit. That we already approved this, kind of checks that box.
I know we spent as much, or maybe more time on gun pay than any other thing we discussed. It was a lengthy.
It was because there's multiple layers to
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
I don't think they like it. I'll just be honest with you. I don't think they like it. And they may come back 5 years and say, we're doing another investigation because we don't like that you're still allowing this policy to happen. Unfortunately, when I point blank ask them to tell us yes or no, or if they had a model policy for it, they don't. So we're kind of left to our own devices to try and create a policy, send it to MTAS, see what they say, try and do our due diligence. And Jim, I will specifically ask Brad, because he is definitely a financial head and would probably know if this had come across it before. And part of the issue, I think, was because it was on the credit card. So she was saying there was an opportunity that the city could pay interest on it and the employee not have to pay interest on it. That has never happened since we got a credit card 15 years ago. We've never paid interest on the city credit card. We pay the balance off every month. So, but she's saying it's possible that it could happen.
Lots of things could happen.
So the last thing is private-public partnerships. I do feel like on this one, we need to ask John Cleveland to draft a resolution. I think we need to authorize specific entities that we are intentionally joining with to form private-public partnerships. I think that's what we've always done as a Main Street organization, and with Sampo, which the mayor is who, asked for Sampo to be started in 2011? Is it 2011?
2010, I believe.
2010. So, I mean, that organization would not exist had the city not asked it to start. So these are definitely private-public partnerships for the city. The way Main Street works is we pay the salary and benefits of the director and also give an operating supplies line item in the budget every year, and then Main Street does their own fundraising and spends their own fundraising money. Each entity has their own set of bylaws. So they do have bylaws that they have to go by. They run their own meetings. They do that kind of stuff. But she spent a lot of time asking how much support city staff gave to those entities. So first, we need to decide as a city that we still want to have festivals, that we still want to have the Main Street program, that we still want to have Sampo and those organizations. And assuming that's the case, we'll draft a resolution authorizing those private-public partnerships with those specific entities. And then they continue to follow their own bylaws. They continue doing their own appointments and everything that they do. But then you all say in that resolution, you're authorizing city staff to do all of these activities that are in that paragraph, meaning the city board knows and understands that Sonia and Jessica and Haley and Josh and John and Savannah and the police department and the fire department and Parks and Rec are all getting city property ready when we have a festival. We're doing their tax filing for them. We're organizing events. We're doing posts for them on social media, collaborating with their boards, cleaning the streets, hosting races, letting them borrow things like tables and chairs, and then we're there working the events. Assuming that you want to continue those things, I think if we made a resolution saying the city acknowledges this is what we know our city employees are doing, and we want it to be that way for our own benefit of economic development and tourism and all the dollars that come in off those things, I think that will probably take care of that issue.
Everybody good with that? Anybody have a problem with it? John, can you handle that?
Like she said with everything else, they don't have a model for it, so it might
All
take
right.
a few days.
Thank you, Jessica.
Does anybody have anything they want me to change or add or amend in any way to any of those policies?
Let me ask you this question, just popped in my mind. Does this funding have anything to do with the mayor's contingency fund or the commissioner's contingency fund?
They did mention both of those in the reports. I mean, they were mentioned in the report. I don't think it was a major
Just as long as
focus.
it's mentioned, not an invitation.
Well, I do think meals are what they were focused on when it was contingency funds. And I think that's why we need to adopt the policy that specifically says if you want to take a business owner out to lunch and pay for it out of your contingency fund, you can do that. And that's authorized and that's considered city business. So
Right.
I think that's wording that needs to be in the policy.
But you gotta bring documentary.
Well, is
And he
it,
brings a receipt.
it's
Yeah.
already in there, the way I read it.
Yeah.
It's in
This proposed draft.
It's
will be
already in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
okay.
some more of that candy stick.
All right, thank you, Jessica.
Save it for
Very good.
next
All right, moving along here. We do have a special guest with us. Where's Tanya? She leave? Oh, there she is. She's hid back there. Tanya is our library director, and at this time she is going to be giving her annual library report. Tanya?
Hi, thank you for having me with you. We're gonna go over what we've been up to from January to December of 2024. And then I will go over this infographic with you all a little bit. So we coordinated with City Hall for movement of fax line circulation desk. We appreciate Landon helping us with that. Pest control treatments, HVAC maintenance cleaning. Parks and Recreation replaced our damaged flagpole lanyard and blown light bulbs, repaired 3 emergency lights, and provided gutter cleaning and maintenance of sewer lines. I have attended 11 of the city meetings, 8 of the city workshops, 6 Main Street meetings, 5 city 150th celebration meetings, 4 of the Friends of the Library meetings, 1 Monroe County Library Board meeting, one county commission budget meeting, and the open house for Cleveland State Community College, Monroe County Center. That's a mouthful there. With the Coy River Regional Library support and state and federal book grants of $7,084, we purchased 375 books. Also with the Coy River Regional Library support and the technology grant, which is a 50-50, for $2,344, we purchased 3 replacement public computers. We completed the Title VI survey, standard survey, and public library survey and data collection. We had a new library logo created in time for the library's 120th anniversary, which was February the 11th. We processed the book challenge from reconsideration form that was submitted July 3rd, and the library received $3,222 in unrestricted private donations. We presented a genealogy talk to the Marcellus Center. We provided pencils, bookmarks, library brochures, and fun pops to 200 plus at Sweetwater's National Night Out. Visited Art Circle Public Library in Crossville and Meigs Decatur Public Library through training and travel. Myself and the staff, we've completed 85 hours of training in accordance with library standards. Our outreach librarian attended one of the Main Street meetings and a ribbon cutting when I was unavailable. We completed our inventory of all the materials in the library's collection, and we provided library information sessions and story times for 5 at Douglas Cherokee Head Start program, 16 for 3rd and 4th grades for Sweetwater Elementary, 77 from the summer school camp at Sweetwater Elementary, 189 for the 1st grade classes at primary school, and 282 at Cross Creek Christian School. We delivered library materials to Sweetwater Boys and Girls Club, Wood Lodge, and Wood Home. We provided a booth and summer reading program kickoff at the city's Blooms Bluegrass and Barbecue, which we had 68 participants for the library scavenger hunt. We provided 4 summer reading program events at Engelman Parks on the Thursdays, and we had 393 in attendance in June. During that same time period, we also hosted the summer school camp kids on the Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and we had 660 in attendance for that. We did lose productivity for 2024 because of illness, surgery, COVID, training, vacations, and the resignations of our youth service children's librarian. We had him for about 8 years. And we also lost our tech service librarian, and then we hired 2 new youth service librarians, and each of those only stayed for 2 months each. We do currently have a new youth service librarian. She came on board in October. Hopefully she will stay with us quite a bit longer. Library volunteers that have helped us include the Girl Scouts, Junior Main Street, high schools, high school service learning, Tennessee Promise, Cleveland State Service Learning, Friends of the Library, Main Street, Court Ordered, community members, and a church. We had little Girl Scouts, like I expected junior Girl Scouts, and we got brownies, daisies, and what they called sprouts to come help weed at sprouts. The little siblings that came help weed at the library, and they put in a good 12 hours. I was quite impressed with them. We did provide you with an infographic here, and this again is January to December 2024. We had 37,542 library visits at the library. We processed 674 new library patron cards. If you're unaware, your library card expires each year on your birthday, hopefully. And if you don't renew it after 3 years, you're purged from the library system, and then you'd have to reapply all over again. We had, for the public computer users, 1,870, and then for the free Wi-Fi, 6,707. We had 21,012 checkouts at the library, and then your library card also gives you access to the Libby app, which provides free magazines, free audiobooks, and ebooks, and there was 12,030 checkouts from that. We did have 308 programs and workshops at the library, and we had 5,484 in attendance. Our wonderful volunteers down here provided us with 931 hours. And we're going to highlight these 2 things at the bottom again about our summer reading program. Summer reading program was created to help the schools with the summer slide in education. And so the summer reading program is to help encourage the kids to read through the summer. We had 393 attend that. But hosting the summer school camp, we had 660 attend that. And I have a feeling this summer there's going to be a lot more because it's been pre-approved to the rising kindergartners. So So we'll probably see a lot more for that. So this year we are adapting, we're doing our summer reading program on a Friday, and then we're hoping to be able to help host the kids, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the reason why we host them is because the school libraries are closed during the summer. So they come, they have to have parents' permission in order to do the field trip to the library, but they always can do checkouts and they always get a behind-the-scenes information session. Which brings us to this last little corner. This is the benefit we have provided to the community, but in a way this is not quite telling the full story, because back up here where we're talking about the Libby app, we do not have a way to pull a report to show the value of the items checked out here. So this number is probably quite a bit higher. Just to let you know, when you come to the library to check the materials out, you're given a receipt and it will list at the bottom of your receipt the value of the items that you're checking out. So that's how we come up with that number there, because it says the value of what you've checked out, and we have a report that we can run for that. And we have a wonderful new brochure with our 120th anniversary on it. If you are unaware, kids needing to read is a big issue in Tennessee. I think we got lucky and we're back up to the 40% that can third grade reading level again can pass the test is 40%. So we do need to encourage them to read early and to read often and to read to your kids, your grandkids, as much as you can. Any questions?
Good job, Tanya.
Thank you.
Thank you for the good report. We discussed in our last workshop the desire to increase the comp time limit. In the handbook, we mentioned an 80-hour limit instead of 48 that we now have. Jessica has advertised this item for a public hearing in the March meeting next week, and then we can take a vote on it. A draft is in your packet. Does anyone want to discuss this or make any comments? Everybody happy with it? All the employees aware of what this change is and everything? Okay. Jessica emailed us about the ordinance change for liquor store square footage. We will now review that item. Jessica, you want to review the square footage?
Sure. So when we originally passed some of the, I think it was actually the original ordinance for liquor stores. On first reading, we set the minimum square footage at 1,800 square feet for a display area. They can have office area, bathroom area, inventory area back away from that, but at least 1,800 square feet has to be display area. Every liquor application we have in place today meets that 1,800 square foot minimum. We before first and second reading, we discussed it in a workshop, and before we did it on final reading, we changed that the Main Street District, well, it wasn't called the Main Street District at the time because it was before we were Main Street, so we called it the Downtown District in the original ordinance. We said that that one could host a boutique liquor store, and that we only required 900 square feet of display area. When we passed that, we passed it with the minimum square footage in the Downtown District of 900 square feet. When I submitted that ordinance to MTAS for codification, I incorrectly grabbed the first draft of that ordinance that did not have that 900 square foot minimum in there and sent it to MTAS for codification. So in our code ever since then, it has only had the 1,800 square foot minimum. If we pass this ordinance that's here and is on the March 3rd agenda, it will take it back to what was originally passed, which is that if you're outside the Downtown District, you have to meet 1,800 square foot minimum. If you're inside the Main Street District, you only have to meet 900 square foot minimum. Y'all may recall that we approved a liquor license in the downtown area several months ago. That building has sold and they are not opening that liquor license, so this isn't gonna affect them at all either. You just basically need to make a decision. Do you want it to be as it was originally with the 900 square feet, which is what the board at the time passed, and I just sent in the wrong copy to MTAS? Or do we want to change the ordinance and not even say that then? And if that's the case, if we don't want to have a separate minimum for downtown, then we still need to pass an ordinance, but it needs to be drafted differently, because basically we're going to be repealing the initial ordinance and changing that. Or I don't know if we'd have to repeal it and replace, but we'd have to amend to some degree. We just need to make it clear what our intention is and what we want from now moving forward. Right this second on the books, we only have the 1,800 square foot passage. MTS thinks either way we should probably pass an ordinance to say what we truly mean in this, since there's been confusion. To me, you all, or that board, had already passed that minimum before, but MTS says since the one they codified didn't have that minimum there, if we want to keep it, we need to pass this new ordinance. So how do y'all feel about that as far as having a different size requirement for the Main Street district?
Can I ask, is this like when Solly Notch had their own little hub in the gallery? Like that's what we're talking about, right?
I think that's a slightly different, and I'm not super familiar with that law, but I do think there is like if you own a vineyard where you're growing your own grapes and making your own wine, you get up to like 6 locations under that, and you can go into a small boutique or do something like that. We did not issue a liquor application for Solly Notch, but that's kind of the idea I think that you're thinking. I don't think ABC will approve a true liquor store application for someone with that little amount of square footage. It would have to be, they only got that because they are a vineyard. So if it's a vineyard making its own wine, they have a whole separate set of rules, and they don't even have to come, I don't think they have to come before the city to get a special liquor license. This would be a true liquor package store. I am buying wine from a distributor. I am paying the 5% inventory tax or whatever it is that they have to pay the city on that, and I'm selling it out of a location. So the question is, do we want it to be 1,800 square feet everywhere, or do we want to say inside the Main Street district we would accept a smaller boutique? And I think part of the reason why they talked about this the first time, if I recall correctly, is that a lot of the buildings in downtown, for example, the one we just passed, which was the Aveda building, the bottom floor of it, you couldn't, it wasn't big enough. 900 square feet was the absolute maximum you could have gotten out of it. So the question really is, do you want a liquor store in downtown or not? Because if you do, we probably are going to have that smaller minimum.
I don't think we need one in downtown, to tell you the truth about it.
I mean,
They got all these they can drive in right in front of. And another thing, we had, if you'll remember going back that far, we had a lot of storefront buildings opened at the time.
Oh, we did have more vacancies then, for
Yeah.
sure.
And they were small, and we brought that into consideration. Well, for downtown, let's lower the square footage, and I think that's where that comes. Put that on the agenda, we'll vote on it. Any comments? Thank you, Joanna.
have we had anyone even?
That one application is the only one that we've had, and that building has sold, so. And we're gonna have to pass an ordinance either way, just to be totally clear on what we want it to be,
I mean,
but.
a lot of the bays down there are 20 foot wide and 100 foot long, and that's half of that square footage. I mean, typically anybody that takes a bay is going to have storage. I mean, that's kind of, I don't remember setting that, but just based on the bay system, your retail and stock, I mean, as far as the setup, it works, square footage wise. I just can't remember if there was anything other than why the 900.
I do think there's, a couple a bit like that one that applied for the license.
Well, it gets back to the question, do you want a liquor store downtown? Do you want it 1,800 square foot or 900 square foot? You might as well put it in there and go for the 900 downtown and 1,800 outside of town, because if you have 1,800 square feet in downtown Sweetwater, you're taking up one square building.
One of the other things it seems like maybe we talked about was if someone wanted to do wine only, like apparently they thought that might be popular in downtown, to just do a wine store, not all the other liquors necessarily, that they would have smaller square footage requirement. I don't know if that.
I think
factors
smaller is
in.
definitely better in the downtown district.
Your other option is you could wait until somebody wants it and then decide to pass it then, it's just gonna delay that time frame. It's gonna put them 60 more days behind because you're gonna have to do
You'd
two
be better
ordinances.
off proactive than waiting on something to happen and react to that.
Yeah, so the question really is, do we want to encourage liquor stores in downtown? And I see right now, like the mayor made a very valid point, we don't have a ton of vacancies in downtown. I think we're at less than 6% right now for total square footage in downtown, and most of those are second floor vacancies. So,
You got room in your apartment?
I don't have.
Okay,
900 square
we'll,
feet.
put it on the agenda with a question attached to it for Monday.
I don't think people want to the third floor.
Well, you changed your mind before you got up there, you got what you wanted.
Yes, sir.
Definitely couldn't have a sampler.
No.
Somebody stumbled up the steps on the way out.
Be like the Lost Sea, the tavern. What was it? The Cavern Tavern.
All right, on the March agenda, we have minutes and distributions. We have a public hearing for the handbook as well as the resolution. We also have the resolution for a safety grant from PE Partners, which we apply for every year. Going back to business, I guess you've got a temporary appointment for the Park and Rec that you would like to submit.
Yeah, we got, a lady that was on the park committee, she resigned, and, it's been recommended that Marcus Johnson, because all his involvements in sports in Sweetwater, take her place, so we're gonna bring it up next week and vote on it, and I'm gonna submit a proposal.
Okay, we'll have that on the agenda, vote on Marcus Johnson to fill in or temporary till the appointment, which
Yeah,
is
her appointment runs, till 25, so.
25, okay,
It'll be temporary to then probably go permanent.
okay. All right, anything else come before the commission, workshop? If not, department head reports, we'll start with Eddie. Eddie.
Everything's staying pretty busy right now, Mayor. We just recently, we started a entry team program. We used to have one years ago, and some of those guys, graduated on to other places. We got it started, had some good training, had a future, past alumni. Trevor Richardson came in, he's an ex-Navy SEAL, and he started a training program. He came in and, the guys got 40 hours training from him last week. He's gonna be following up with that, and therefore it's like train the trainer, so they can train the other officers in the department, kind of help on that part. Been working with the other departments, like I said, street department, they staying on top of the weather, and John helps with the fire department, just staying busy.
Okay. John Anderson.
Apologize for being late. Funeral home. Everything's going smooth. Did find out today, ISO will be here 1st of April for the audit for that. Get that out of the way. Everything else is just regular business. Smooth.
Any chance we can increase our ISO numbers?
Good chance.
Good chance? Okay,
It's actually decreasing the number, but yes,
yeah.
that's been the goal for the last 5 years. Is it my turn?
John Campbell.
Nothing big or exciting or new to announce. I wish I could announce something like KFC coming. Talk that one to death. I think I told y'all before, the last conversation I did have with them, they're now saying end of this year before they start breaking ground, and the middle of next year before it's complete. So mid 26 when that was done. Dollar General is in the middle of their demolition now on North Main Street, so that was coming down. I don't know when the new one's going to open. I haven't got any time frames on that, but they are demoing the old one where the fire was, the new one where the fire was. Another set of townhomes going up off of South High Street. They're River Park townhomes. Got their building permits Friday, I guess, to start the next building, which will have 4 additional units in it. So this building will have 4 new homes in it, of course separated by firewall. So that'll be should start seeing footers being dug probably this week. Now they've that's about all the new stuff I've got. I don't have anything to report as far as the old Dollar Tree site, still waiting on the owner to, I think he's looking for a long-term lease there, hoping for a tenant that'll rent it out for long-term. He's not, sent me any word of anybody that he would consider a good long-term tenant. So, that's, and then of course the one that we just talked about, the liquor store in Plaza 68, you know, new tenant going in there. That's about all I've got on anything new.
Thank you, John. David?
Everything's going good with the street department. Looking forward to getting started back on Circle Park as soon as the weather lets us. You know, as soon as the ground gets dried up, pour concrete again. Grass is about to start growing. We'll be busy mowing, usual summer stuff, you know, mowing, concrete, asphalt, that kind of stuff. Everybody's working real good in our department right now. I'm proud of it.
And fishing gets a lot better too, don't it?
We don't talk about fishing.
Sean?
Well, we've got all of our sports starting next week. We got soccer, softball, baseball. Luckily, it looks like we'll have good weather this week, so we'll be able to get everything ready for those to start. I was actually gonna talk about the Marcus Johnson thing, but since y'all have already discussed that, I don't have to mention it now. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Operation Inasmuch. It's a church organization, multiple churches in the area. They get together end of April, and they just do different projects around town. So I know through the years they've done some different stuff for the city, and so I started talking to Phil Roy yesterday about getting some projects put on there for us. One of the things I'm looking at is mulching the library, cleaning up around that, and probably help do some painting at the rec complex. And all that would consist of is us providing the paint and mulch, and they'll provide the labor. And then just a little fun little tidbit of information y'all might be interested in. Back in 2021, y'all had the fitness court installed at the rec complex. And I don't know how they collect their data, but somehow they do. Back the first of the month, me and Jessica had a Zoom meeting with the National Fitness Campaign, and they shared with us that since 2021, when it was installed, there's an average of 7,595 people using that per year. With a yearly average of 1,898,734 calories being burned. So, I
Oh,
guess
Sweetwater.
that's a good investment.
They did tell us it was it was above what their average was. It's an above average use. I think location is part of that. It's in a great location, but we were a little surprised by that when we saw.
I was very surprised.
We still track Google questions on that too, and in the dead of winter in January, we had 38 people ask for directions to that fitness court in 1 month. So I mean, I think it's been a good investment.
Question.
I'm so glad we got that.
Question, and I've heard different rumors, is the pool gonna be open?
Pool, the last we decided, will not be open this year.
Pool is closed this year.
And hopefully that will be completed and ready to open next summer.
I doubt it.
I'll bring the
Fingers
feathers.
crossed.
Why do you wait to the summer to do this? I mean, why wasn't this project done earlier than this? Wait until the pool has to be closed. What happened?
Because we just got the grant, and then lining up all the work. There's too much work to be done in that amount of time from the time that we got the grant. We have to go through the steps of submission, and the steps of submission take almost 2 months. So it is the process of getting the grant, doing the work, getting the submissions, and getting the approval. it could not be done in time to have all that done by the time the pool started.
Could we open the pool and do the work after the pool closes this year?
The problem with that is, when we get ready to start that swimming pool back up, we're gonna have to do some more major repair work to it.
Yes.
That's more cost, more labor intensive and all that. The best solution to that problem is to take it down, leave it down, get ready and do some preliminary removal of it, cause all that stuff probably gonna have to come out. And it's gonna take a long time to get it going to be ready for next year.
Our goal is that we only have to close it one season. That's
I mean,
that's what we're trying to do.
And what we're trying to do is take care of the complete repair process, other than just getting enough done to get it open. That way, Sean and the whole city won't have to worry about it, hopefully, for another 50 years.
I've been on the board since 14, and every summer we have to shut the thing down and work on it. We've had to pump water down the last couple of years to do repair work to it, fill it back up. So it's getting to the point where if we don't do something and do it right, then we're going to have to shut the pool down permanently, because it's not worth keeping it open.
The thing about it is, yes, it is a bad thing, but in a PR world, we are repairing this for the next 50 years. It's one summer, and then we'll be up and running next year.
What was the amount of that grant? I forgot what it.
It's $1 million. I'd say it'll take more than that. So it's been 50 years at that pool, right?
Have we
nothing fixed yet.
already got people in line to do the work?
We'll have to
Put it out for bid.
we'll have to put it out for bid. So we will. Is it April?
The timeline right now is bid in April.
Yep.
Construction starts June 1st. So
So June 1st, they'll start taking the old concrete out, right?
that's what we hope.
What do you mean you hope?
Sam,
Weather.
I doubt it.
We're hoping
What do we know on the Family Rec Center or Community Center?
So we've just done
We-
that letter that you gave me today.
Same difference.
Yeah, that letter you gave me today was actually part of the environmental. We have to do a full environmental for that, for the CDBG grant, which is a little over $1 million. That includes sending letters to the Indian tribes to make sure they're okay with us building a community center, and that's the letter that you forwarded me back today. So we have to give them 45 days to respond as part of the environmental. John met with an inspector last week down there. There's radon testing that has to be done on the site to pass that environmental. Lots of work to be done for the environmental phase, and once we get past that, they'll again let us bid. We're hoping we can bid that one in April or May of this year.
What's the Indians got to do, you know?
Buried ground.
checking boxes.
It's part of the environmental.
Well, if they're down there and they're dead and buried, they ain't gonna bother nothing no way.
let's hope we don't find any dead
It's
bodies.
it is the joys of
Oh my word, that was
doing our
slow
due
things.
diligence just to get to use that money.
You
And
know,
it's a lot of money, so
Well,
we play by their rules.
I'm curious. Did the utility board? Did they have to have this study done when they built that big building?
No,
down?
but they didn't use grant funding. That's
Yeah,
the thing about using grant funding
Okay.
on it. They're gonna make us
All
jump through
They did
more
meet
hoops.
down there. Eric did meet down there. He and I met with the representative that's doing the environmental work. So Eric was very helpful.
He was, thank goodness for Eric that he has been there as long as he has, because he was able, that building was built in his, in his memory, so he was able to answer a lot of their questions and hopefully save us some time.
Okay. Anything else? All minds clear? We are adjourned. Thank you.
thank you.
We all look at doing the work,
You want us to look at the
depending on.